It is good to have you all here. We appreciate all of our staff and especially welcome new folks and the new things that you bring. Sometimes new blood is helpful to all of us, and we hope you'll learn along the way, but we always plan to figure we'll learn a lot from you too, so we're glad to have you. Families First, you may have read a little bit in the employee handbook about the rich history and legacy we have, but Families First is the oldest social service organization in the state and believed to be one of the first in the country to be organized outside of an institutional base that is and serving people without regard to race, religion, or creed. A lot of the really old organizations such as ours were originally poorhouses, almshouses, orphanages, or somehow linked to church organizations and don't have the kind of similar startup or history that we have. Our organization, Families First, was founded in 1835 on Thanksgiving Day as the Indianapolis Benevolent Society. It was founded by some families who felt like as the city was getting bigger and the population was growing, that it would be a good thing for them to have some formal system of preparing people to be successful in the community, helping them get settled, helping them to get material needs met, as well as figuring out housing and all of those kinds of things. Our early annual reports talked about even helping people get baths, and so I'm guessing that the covered wagons and all people were in need of those. We started out, as I said, in 1835, and so you can kind of get a picture of what that's like if you've been to Conner Prairie. The village there depicts life in 1836. So it gives you an idea of what families' lives were like at that time. So the organization was run by volunteers for many years. At first, it was all families kind of helping. The men were more likely to be involved in kind of the fundraising aspect and the governance aspect, whereas the wives tended to be what were called friendly visitors. And they would go to welcome new people and help them with anything from information about, getting familiar with the community. And keep in mind, this was, there were a lot of immigrants at that time, so a lot of people who similar to what you're doing today, or from different cultures and languages and so forth. So helping people get acclimated to the community, and also then beginning to offer some help around parenting issues or whatever. As time went on, they became increasingly involved with families that were maybe having a little difficulty adjusting or getting through the community life. We have records at the Historical Society History Center that date back to about 1860, and some of those are actually case logs written by caseworkers who visited, and written board minutes that were written in really fancy scroll and huge books. Mm-hmm. And they talk about the predecessors of Eli Lilly being involved originally. Other famous names that are part of our history are the Holiday family, if you've heard of Holiday Park, Ephraimsons, if you've heard of Ephraimson Foundation, Colonel English, who was the person who created this building that we are in as a home residence for Indianapolis's social welfare organizations to reside at little or no rent. So we're still among those original organizations who came here about 60 years ago and benefit from lower cost rent. So it's one of the advantages of being here. The early records that we have about families who were served, there are some things that were probably different from today, and some things that were pretty similar. You'll hear or see things in the records about people. The terminology was different than we would use today. There was reference to laziness, idleness, those kinds of things, and some term I can't remember for wild women, but So there were lots of things, the terminology being different, but some of the problems and issues were not really all that different in terms of the families, often times there would be abandonment within the families, mental illness, addictions, child neglect, and some of the same things, again, different vocabulary, but same issues. And then you'll read some things that make you think life was really quite different. There was one case that I read about of a family that were new to the community, and they originally were from Belgium. And the father died unexpectedly, obviously. After they arrived here, he got choked on something and died, and left the mom with several kids. And so the friendly visitor was going to check on her, and there were notes and this case log about several, over the course of a few months, that almost all of the children had died from what was probably diarrhea or something, that the kinds of things that dysentery and things that took babies' lives, and back in the time when there were not some of the antibiotics or methods are known about how to take care of those things. So there was a lot of early childhood death and grief and loss, and people didn't live long lives at that point. So that was one of the kinds of things that you would see that was quite different in terms of the difference in health status and longevity and those kinds of things. Our organization originally started out, as I mentioned, as the Indianapolis Benevolent Society, and then formed a second organization called the Charity Organization Society, and that was really more of a planning arm and really kind of looking more broadly at community needs, and the community was growing to the size that they felt like there was risk of duplication of services, that families might go to one church and get help in someplace else, and so they wanted to have more coordinated approach to helping families. And so the charity organization was formed, and out of that grew legal aid, the day nursery, children's bureau, the School of Social Work, City Hospital, School of Nursing. Lots of things really kind of grew out of those initial kinds of meetings and leadership about what were needs in our community. So our organization was involved. The Indianapolis Benevolent Society helped the prominent citizens in the African American community to develop. They wanted to develop their own benevolent society. So that was they got assistance, and that was the beginnings of Flanner House. So there are lots of neat stories and things about our history that, if you're interested in that kind of thing, the records are pretty intriguing and compelling, and what you get to look at it's kind of hard to leave sometimes. They're really pretty fun. So I wouldn't have said that though 20, 30 years ago, so my age is showing. So in terms of our mission, Familes First, we kind of revised our mission a couple of years ago, and basically, if you're asked, it's really about helping families through life's challenges and changes. That we tend to see families at a point where they are developmentally moving along in their family, that or their life, that they're sort of faced with some sort of life crisis or challenge, or there may be changes or unexpected kinds of issues, and we deal with everything from an individual who, college student who may be struggling with stress, or an individual who's having issues of some kind or another, to people at the other end of the life spectrum who are nearer the end of their lives and need support to hopefully age in place is our goal, to help them age in the least restrictive way and most familiar way. So that is kind of a core tenet of all of our services, to try to offer services in the least restrictive way, whether that be kids involved in child welfare system, juvenile justice system, Department of Corrections, older adults. We really try to help families to be successful where they're at and meeting families where they're at. And so that's really one of our core values, I think. The other thing that I think is a pretty core value of ours and a part of our mission is that we really try to use a strengths-based approach and to look at what is working well for people and really to recognize the resilience and strength that's present in families that, while they might be struggling, all family relationships have some value, and we try to honor those and to recognize the strength and resilience in families. Our offices are, it's community-based, but we have offices in Greenfield, Lebanon, Plainfield. We have a shelter in Martinsville that we're able to see folks out of. And then a lot of our work, as you know, is done in the families' homes, whether that's the family preservation programs for families involved with child welfare system, or our older and challenged adult services. The staff in that program work in families' homes too. And we really, I think, pride ourselves on trying to eliminate barriers to people getting service, whether that's taking the service to them and in an environment that's more convenient and accessible and more comfortable, to if they're here, if they have services here, we try to provide child care and help with planning for transportation if that's an issue, and being on a bus route and other things that are, I think, important considerations in terms of families getting the help they need. The other thing that is real critical to our accessibility is that we have a sliding fee scale that's very generous for folks who are served through certain contracts, like domestic violence victims or through Department of Child Services. There is no charge, but for families who are paying a fee, our sliding fee scale goes down to $1. And that is incredibly generous if you are familiar with the mental health centers and other sources of help for people that have a sliding fee scale. It doesn't go anywhere near that. So we really want to be available to all families. And having said that, I guess a part of our strategic plan is that we would like to be more available to all families. We recognize that all families have challenges and issues, not just those who are low income and might have issues of environmental kind of circumstances and issues that are add to their difficulties. So we would love to see more families with greater means, and feel that we're a great resource for people that sometimes people tend to go to private practitioners or mental health systems or whatever, and we feel like our product is every bit as good, and our staff are great, and have really a lot of experience dealing with tough problems and issues. And so we feel like that is a service that we'd like to see more people of our community use our services. We are looking, in terms of other strategic plan issues, we're looking at the potential of other space. We're a little cramped in this space, so we're looking at other options. We would like to figure out if there's a role for us in healthcare reform in terms of trying to help people stay well, and recognize that a lot of the people that we serve and see are among the most costly participants in the healthcare system, whether that's because of domestic violence, child abuse, socioeconomic factors, mental illness, substance abuse. All of those tend to be higher cost folks to our healthcare system, and we feel like that we may have a role to play there in helping to contain costs and to minimize hospitalizations and those kinds of things. We also are looking at the possibility of opening some kind of having some kind of an endeavor that would be raise funds that are not government funds and not charitable funds, but have some sort of a business model which would employ clients potentially and volunteers, use volunteers to help in generating revenue. So you're all familiar with Goodwill is probably the most well-known successful model. We're not looking to be that scale, but to have something that would generate revenue is something that's kind of on our radar screen. You'll hear more about the other programs and committees and so forth later, and some of the initiatives like fundraising. But just a quick mention of our staff committees. We have a couple of active committees within our staff. One of them is the social committee, which if you haven't heard of them yet, they do a lot of planning on behalf of staff to try to help staff provide support to staff around celebrations, tough times, if it's a tough case or personal challenges, whatever, try to be of support through what they refer to as Code Lavender, that if they are aware somebody's having a rough day or whatever, they don't really need to know what it's about, but to lend some sort of support. They also are involved in recognizing birthdays and celebrating employee anniversaries and planning a holiday party, picnic and those kinds of things. So that is a group that's really a fun group and a wonderful, nice group of people. That good way to connect and meet people. I think we're fairly large. I think when you're not within the big picture, but as a new person, being a new employee among up to 100 can be a little bit intimidating. So those committees are nice ways to get connected. Another committee is that we've launched in the past year or so is the diversity committee, and we would welcome participation on that committee. We have a few kind of diehards, but really could stand to have some increased diversity actually, and increased participation on that committee. So that's another one. I'm going to share with you. These are committees of our board directors. We're governed by a board of directors that includes about, we have sort of more honorary board members and then elected board members who serve 2-year terms. And they serve on a volunteer basis, and we have about 25 to 28 at any given time. They are expected to, as a member of our board of directors, to make a personal monetary gift. If they are part of a company, expected to try to help get sponsorship from their company when we have an event. They are expected to serve on one of these committees. And what these committees mean or do, services planning committees involved in, they really look at the work that you all do. They look at the client satisfaction, they look at the outcomes, the number of people served compared to how many we expected to serve. Probably every couple of years or so, they'll look more critically at the overall program in terms of its fit within the organization, how important or critical it is to the mission, what are the financial aspects of the program, and kind of the pros and cons of that program service. So that is a committee that meets pretty regularly and looks over our quality improvement information, which I forgot to mention. We have QI Council, which has staff members as well, and that meets quarterly, and that's where we look internally at incident reports, child abuse and neglect reports, client satisfaction reports, outcomes and those kinds of things, and also then kind of look as a group about where are we falling short on different things and what training needs we might have or ways we can improve service and that kind of thing. So that's a committee that staff can be a part of, and that committee actually feeds into our services planning committee of the board of directors. Protective Care Committee is one of the committees that looks at cases on a specific basis that Gail or her staff might bring, where we're looking at doing something that does encroach on a person's individual freedoms. if we're going to become represented payee and their Social Security is going to come to us and they're not going to be able to handle their own finances anymore, or we may be seeking power of attorney or even guardianship. Some of those decisions are overseen by the court, but we still, before we do that, we want to have some independent advisors take a look at whether or not that seems like an appropriate route for the person who we deem as being in need of protective care. That committee has board members, but it also has some people who are not board members, and that's intentional, that we have some people who are disinterested parties. The board members don't have a financial stake, and so in that regard, they don't either. But it's just a little more of an arm's length. Family Loan Committee is a committee that looks at families who are applying for a loan, and that might be for purchase of a car or helping them to get started in an apartment or something. And so families who meet certain criteria can apply for a loan, and then the committee decides whether or not to bid on that person. We have a finance committee that oversees our budget, the development of the budget. They meet with auditors who review us every year and look through all of our financial reports. And I think that committee is very solid as far as we have really, I think, good stewardship of funds, and the agency's pretty fiscally prudent, and we probably are in a better financial shape than probably most agencies, I think, in the community. And I think that's in part because we have such a great finance committee and such expertise there that really is pretty cautious in terms of having adequate reserves and endowment, and that we're maximizing our return on the endowment that we have, and so on. We have a public relations committee and a development committee, which is fundraising committee, and you may hear more about those later, so I won't say more about those. But I forgot to pass this out, but this speaks about the history and mission, but it also refers to our commitment to quality. And I've mentioned QI Council a couple of times, but we are pleased that we are accredited by the Council on Accreditation of Services for Families and Children. That's a national accrediting body that is independent. They come outside our community and evaluate services and how we're doing, everything from our finance to our risk management to client service. And they talk with staff, they talk with board, they survey community stakeholders, funders, clients, everybody. They gather information from everybody. So we go through that process every 4 years, and we find it to be a valuable process and a credential that we're proud to have. We also are certified by the Department of Mental Health and Addictions, and certified as Medicaid, Medicare choice provider, and we're also certified by
the State Division of Health
for our
personal services, which is our homemaker
service. So we have a lot of oversight, and sometimes it feels like we spend an awful lot of time with rules and regulations and compliance and that kind of thing, and we do. But that's all part of doing business in this kind of arena. So.
Myself, I'm Gail Rothrock, and I'm one of the senior vice presidents, and I oversee kind of a blended area. Part of the responsibilities I have are over some of the client programs that we offer, and then some of them are more administrative. So I'll start with the clinical side, since that's the world that you all live in. And talk with you about the Vistas program. You heard Edie mention that some of the home-based services that we provide are to older adults and to adults with challenges, whether it be mental illness or intellectual disabilities. And our goal is to try and help them be as independent as possible and to protect them from any exploitation or scams or mismanagement of their own finances or anything like that. So that's the program area that we call Vistas, and it is staffed by a team of 8 people. 4 of them are social workers and 4 of them are homemakers. We call them care team assistants rather than homemakers. So you might hear people refer to CTAs, and that's the homemaking component of Vistas. But that group of 8 people serves a population that is, I can tell you, very challenging. Fun in a lot of ways, but also kind of stressful at times. And because of the high intensity of the services that we provide, the high intensity of the needs that these clients have, they tend to have smaller caseloads. So the social workers in that group never have more than 20 clients at a time, and sometimes maybe only 15. And the ages of our clients can really vary widely. Certainly we have elderly folks up into their 90s, but we also have younger adults who have decision-making impairments, and our youngest clients right now are in their mid-20s. So it's a very wide expanse in terms of age. And we serve all of Marion County. We'd like to be able to offer Vistas in the neighboring counties, but at this point we haven't been able to do so because we don't have enough staff to cover the need. And this program is unique from some of the other programs in our organization in that it has almost no external funding support other than what we can raise either through United Way or personal donations or corporate gifts. It's really heavily fundraising dependent. There isn't an organization like Department of Child Services that will provide grants to help support our work. We do get some funding support from SECOA, which is the Central Indiana Council on Aging, that purchases some services for us, but the funding that they provide is only for specific clients and only for specific services, and so the limitations are such that it really don't generate much revenue. And although we do charge client fees, so many of our clients in the Vistas program are very, very low income, fixed incomes often on Social Security or disability, and so they're not able to pay much more than maybe $1 a month, $5 a month, maybe 10 if we're lucky. The other thing that's unique about this program is that we really, the types of services that we provide for these clients really runs a whole continuum. Edie mentioned that we try to take the least restrictive approach possible. And so for some clients that may mean just going in, having our social workers, case managers go in and see them maybe once a month, check and make sure that they're doing okay, make sure that their Medicaid and their food stamps and their energy assistance applications are all submitted in a timely manner, that they've got sufficient resources, or if there's other kinds of services or support that they need. If they need a homemaker, one of our CTAs can go in to help with cleaning or laundry or grocery shopping or whatever it might be. So that's more just kind of a check-in support kind of role. The kind of thing that maybe a family member would do, except that most of our clients are, they don't have the family support that they need, either because their families live too far away, or their families may be too dysfunctional to be of much help, or sometimes the family members are taking advantage of the person financially, and so we're basically trying to step in and protect them from their own family, which is unfortunate, but it happens. So that might be a minimum level of support. But then, as Edie mentioned, we can go into more intrusive kinds of interventions if that's what's needed to keep the person safe. And so we can become their representative, taking where their money comes to us. We pay their bills. We give them spending money because maybe that's the best way to protect them from being exploited by someone else, or because they're mismanaging it because of dementia or head injury or whatever it might be. But we may also become their court-appointed guardian if they need that. That's the most intrusive thing, and the thing that we try to avoid doing if there are better alternatives, but because it's a lifelong commitment. And so I mentioned that some of our clients are in their mid-20s. Two of them, it's a brother and a sister, and we are their legal guardian. Now, assuming they have a full life expectancy, we could be responsible for them for another 50, 60 years, who knows? So that's a big responsibility to take on. So we are very cautious, and as she mentioned, we have a committee that oversees those decisions and helps us think through that to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So the program, as I mentioned, it's very labor intensive. The other thing is that we, in addition to the limited caseloads, we don't have a lot of turnover in our caseloads because unlike some of the clients that you're serving, for example, in Department of Child Service contracts, you have a specific time limit in which you can do your work. And we don't have that. And in fact, some of the folks that we serve are going to need us for their entire life. And so some of our clients have been with us for 10 years, 20 years. I mean, we have some of our staff in that program have been with us 20 years or more and are still working with some clients that they haven't started. So we like to be able to turn over cases more often, and we're working on ways to try to figure out if there are ways that we can step in and provide some short-term services and then step out. But often these are clients who are so vulnerable and who don't have other kinds of help, and the risk to them if we do step out might be too great. So we don't set limits on the number of years that we work with these folks. So having said that, since we don't have financial resources to depend on to cover the cost of service, and because they are high-cost cases in terms of the intensity of the service and the length of time that they're served, what has happened is that we've built up a huge waiting list. It's over a year long, and and unfortunately, since the population is aging, we're expecting that our VISTAS program is going to continue to see increasing demand with time. So we're working very hard to figure out if there's a way to generate some other sources of revenue for this program. And I won't go into all the details on that, but it's a dilemma that we just face on an ongoing basis. And so we'll hope that we can grow that program, but right now our little team of 8 staff, it's a small but mighty group. So, and you will occasionally see some of our clients here in the building because there are a few that are able to get out in the community and come to visit and pick up their spending money and check in with staff. So you may get to know a few of them over time. So that's VISTA's program. Family loan program, Edie mentioned briefly. This is a really unique program that we have. There's not another loan program like it in the state. There are some other agencies similar to ours around the country that have a loan program like this. But it is intended to serve people who have credit problems to the point that they can't go into a bank and get a loan to buy a car, for example, or to get a car repair loan if they have major repairs needed on a vehicle, or some other kind of need that they have like that. This program is intended to serve those people who are high risk in terms of a bank's perspective. We can provide them with a personal loan. Typically, it's a 2-year loan. We have extended it to 30 months on a few occasions. And most of the loans are given for people to buy a car, a used car, or to repair a vehicle that they have so that they can get to and from work. And the program is, it does require that the person be employed and have shown a track record of steady employment for at least 9 months. That's one of the criteria that we've developed just to try and help make sure that we're getting people who have some stability in their lives. We know they've got credit problems, we know they've got limited finances, but if we can see some evidence that they've got enough stability to stay employed for 9 months or more. The other criteria is that they be the parent of a child under the age of 18, either that they are the custodial parent or that they can demonstrate that they're providing support if they're not a custodial parent. So, and in some cases, grandparents who are raising grandchildren can qualify too. So some of the folks that you might see in your home-based program could be eligible for this type of loan. Emma Sullivan is our loan coordinator. She's a one-person show in terms of the loan program. And she'd be happy to talk with you if you know of people that might fit into this type of program, because she's always looking for people to try and reach out and make them aware that this resource exists to them. The loan does not actually come from us, it comes from the National Bank of Indianapolis. And the reason that's important is because if they borrow that money and they pay off that loan successfully, they have automatically improved their credit score. That we really look to all of you to provide stories that will help us tell our story. I don't know about you, but I would much rather hear a story about someone than to just hear facts and figures. And so when Liz and any of us try to explain to someone what is Families First, what do you do, it's always more powerful if we can tell a story of someone whose lives, of people whose lives were changed. And so she will look to you periodically, and sometimes she'll issue a request. Do you have any success stories? Do you have anybody that would be willing to share their story? Sometimes we have brave clients who will actually get up in front of a room of potential donors and tell their story. Not everyone's comfortable with that, but maybe they might be willing to write it down, or maybe they would let you tell it if you disguise their identity. So there are lots of ways that we can help people share stories and still allow them to protect their identity as much as they want. But so we'll look to you periodically for help with that. The other role that you can play is things like social media. Like our website on Facebook, and just try to help share information. Liz will talk to you about messaging, because one of the toughest things in the 19 years I've been here, one of the toughest things is when somebody asks, what does Families First do? And you have like 2 minutes to tell them, and we're taking up half of a day to tell you what Families First does. So it's very hard, because we are so diverse as in the types of services we provide. Very hard to do that in a compact way. So Liz has some tips she'll share with you later on how to tell a message about Families First that you can kind of put into 25 words or less. So then development is another area that I oversee, and as Edie mentioned, we do have ongoing fundraising. We have special events, 2 big special events, and then some smaller ones during the year. The 2 that I'll mention, because they're kind of the hallmarks, Stand Up for Families. That usually happens, now it happens in the early spring. We used to have it in the fall. Now we've shifted gears a little bit. Stand Up for Families, we've been doing it 19 years now, and it's stand-up comedy, and it's hence the name. And there's also an auction, live and silent auction. There's dinner. It's just a fun event, and employees of Families First are encouraged to attend, or if you choose to volunteer, there's lots of hands needed to help with the event. We usually hold it on a Saturday night, often at a hotel downtown here, and usually have about 250 people or so. And don't know who the comedian's going to be. We're shopping around, but each year we try to bring in somebody that's got some name recognition, and so people have a good time and they shop at the auction, and we generate a lot of funds that way. So, and then the other big event is a breakfast, and that will be happening in October this year, and that's called Salute to Families. So we've got Stand Up for Families and Salute to Families. The Salute event is more of a, this is really more shining a light on the stories of the work that we do. And so this is where we have recognized particular clients, kind of spotlighted their stories. It's, we've done a videotape to tell the story of the work that we do. It's an event where we try to get people to make pledge commitments. So it's a fundraising event, but it's really focused more, it's not the entertainment fun thing of Stand Up for Families. It's more focused on helping people learn what we do through the stories. So you'll hear more about those. Fundraising is very essential to our organization, and United Way is a big source of support for us. I don't think that Edie mentioned, but we are the second largest recipient of United Way funds here in Central Indiana. I think American Red Cross is in first place and we're second, so it's a sizable amount of money. We do like our staff to support United Way themselves, and then we also have close ties with them in a lot of ways, and we're part of their family of agencies. There's now, I think, about 100 agencies that are supported by United Way of Central Indiana. So we try to make sure that everyone understands that we are a United Way agency, and programs like Vistas depend heavily on that support. So that's a big, important piece for us. And then finally, volunteer services. We do use volunteers in a number of ways, and you may come across people that are interested in a volunteer opportunity, and you can direct them to Leah Gonzalez, who's Nate's sister. She is our Director of Donor Relations and also coordinates our volunteers. The areas where we most frequently use volunteers are our Child's Haven, which is the child care room that we have here, and then we also have one at the City County building. So extra hands are always handy to have when we've got a group of kids. And then we also use them in our Breaking Free program to help with the children and women who are meeting in related to domestic violence. And so those support groups that we hold, we always like to have extra help. So we do have a specialized training program for volunteers in the Breaking Free program that really goes into more detail about the folks that they're working with, the cycle of violence and how it impacts women and children who experience violence, so that volunteers are better equipped to handle the things they might encounter. And then last but not least, the Vistas program. It takes a special kind of volunteer that's willing to work with some of our Vistas clients. They can be challenging, older adults or adults with mental illness or adults with intellectual disabilities can be difficult at times, but we really appreciate having volunteers that will, from time to time, maybe it's a one-time thing. We have, sometimes we have needs for relocating an older adult to, that's maybe having to move from an apartment to an assisted living facility, and we just need extra hands helping move furniture. Or it may be someone wants a more one-on-one kind of relationship. We can arrange for sort of that friendly visiting kind of contact. So we can use volunteers in a lot of ways in the organization. So if you are aware of folks that you think might enjoy that, talk with Leah and she'll try to reel them in.
Yes, my name is Michelle Waltley, and I'm the Senior Vice President of over the Counseling and Addictions Division, which is what the home-based program's under, and the Safe Families Division, which is what the Breaking Free Alternatives to Domestic Violence program's under. So your supervisors report to me. So that's kind of how that works. Let me go ahead and we'll start with the Counseling and Addictions Division and tell you we got a lot of good stuff that we do under that division. And right now what I'm passing around is, I think it's helpful because I know when I started it was so hard to know who all worked where and what their names were, and it'll take a while before you kind of learn everybody in the agency, but probably not as long as you think. You know, sometimes I think it's overwhelming at first, but we're kind of a small group. It really, we've got right now about 100 employees, so it's not impossible to learn everybody's name and what they do. One of the programs that we have here that's, gosh, I can't even remember the year that we first started this, but we've been doing chemical dependency programs for a really long time now, is outpatient chemical dependency or substance abuse treatment. And we offer this in all of our locations. So our Boone County office, our Plainfield office, our Greenfield office, and here we all offer the same programs within the substance abuse program at each office. So that's complete psychosocial assessment. When they come in, we have an intensive outpatient program that is 3 hours each time they come in, 3 times a week. So they're here a minimum of 9 hours a week, and we also do some individual work with the clients as well. So they could be here 10 or 11 hours a week. And then once people, generally that program's about 8 weeks long, so that when somebody is done with that piece of it, they then go into our aftercare relapse prevention program where they're here 1 hour a week for another 8 weeks. Now, depending on the person, we can adjust that. Sometimes they're here a little bit longer than that, depending on what their needs are. So, but typically it's about a 16-week long program. And then we also do, like I said, individual and family counseling with that as well. And whenever we can get the family members involved, we try to do that. So we do have a family night where our clients are supposed to bring in a family member, and they have a group while the clients are in their group. So, and then we also have a outpatient education class that's 1 time a week, and then just an outpatient treatment class, which is 1 time a week as well. It's for people that are abusing substances but may not be dependent upon them at this point. So, and then on your sheets you'll see the supervisor's name, the program assistant's name, and the staff that currently work in that program. One thing that you'll find is we have a lot of staff that work in multiple programs, particularly between domestic violence program and our family counseling program. We share a lot of staff, so you'll see some names on here more than once. Okay, any questions about the chemical dependency program? Okay, pretty straightforward. The next program we have, and I have these two together even though they really are separate programs, is family counseling and our employee assistance services that we offer. So what we do with employee assistance programs is we contract with other businesses and organizations, and most of them are here locally. We also subcontract with other providers out of state that may have some employees located in a smaller office here, such as Xerox. They have offices all over the United States, so we see their people here locally that work out of this territory. So the family counseling staff, most of them are trained in employee assistance program issues as well. And so when somebody comes in for counseling, they could get somebody that's mainly works in family counseling or somebody that mainly works in EAP, either way. And we do a full, they used to call it broad brush array of services under EAP. So if a business has like an accident, or employee is killed, or there's a fire, or what, bank robberies, gone to do a lot of those bank robberies, meeting with clients or meeting with the employees there. Myself and some other counselors will go in and meet with the employees, or if there's an incident at a school, you've probably seen where they'll have a team of counselors come in. Well, sometimes they'll call me, and I'll get maybe another therapist or two to go with me, and we'll go out and meet with the parents, and meet with the kids, and meet with the faculty. So that's one thing we do. We also currently have a student assistance program at Ivy Tech just down the street here. So we have a counselor that is there 20 hours a week that just has office hours, and she is booked pretty much every hour on the hour. Some people don't show, but she is scheduled pretty tight there, and so they really could use about 2.5 of her right now with the way the demand is. Sorry to say, but yeah. And so she meets with people for all kinds of reasons, family issues, they're having trouble staying in school, financial stress, a lot of stress issues is what she sees. And she's also seen several suicidal clients, as well. So I'm, a little concerned with the amount of students that are struggling with that. So anyway, she also does presentations, and we have other people with expertise in other areas go in and do presentations to their faculty and to their students as well. So we do that. And then with our in-office counseling, it is pretty much the way you think of when you think of office-based counseling. Typically people come one time a week for 1 hour at a time. Doesn't mean that sometimes they don't come 2 or 3 times a week, but typically they're in hour increments. And there again, we try to work with the whole family as much as possible. If we can get the family involved, it seems like the person has a little bit better support and a little bit better head start on some of the issues they're dealing with. There again, probably the main things: stress, blended family issues, relationship issues, job stress. A lot of stress out there nowadays. So we do see a lot of that. Anxiety, depression, grief issues, all those kind of things. We also have 2 child play therapists on staff. Brenda Truex and Penny Zimmerman are our play therapists. And so they stay pretty busy seeing kiddos as well. So and they each have their own little play therapy rooms with all their setup and things set up for them. So there again, we do assessments, couples counseling, individual counseling, family counseling under that program. Any questions about that? Okay, moving right along. Okay, and then the other program that's under the Counseling and Addictions Division is our Family Preservation Home-Based Services. And around here, we kind of just, when somebody says the home-based program, even though a lot of our programs are home-based, they're usually referring to this one, the Family Preservation Home-Based Services Program. And in this program, and I didn't mention this up above with chemical dependency program, but with our chemical dependency program, we get about 50% of our referrals from the Department of Child Services, and about 49.5% of our referrals from probation, and then about 0.5% elsewhere. It may be an employer that's referred them, or maybe they're self-referred, but for the most part, DCS and probation. Same for the family preservation program. It's about 80%, 85% referrals from Department of Child Services, and then about 15% from juvenile probation. So these are kiddos that have been involved in the court system, adjudicated juveniles that are either transitioning back home, they've gotten into some kind of trouble. A lot of times, you know, parents don't want them back home because maybe home has been a little bit smoother since they've been out of the house. So our goal is to work with them and the family unit to try to get the child back in the home and keep that child in the home with the parents. And everybody's sane in the home while we do that. So with our Department of Child Services referrals, for the most part, you know, abuse, neglect. Those are the main things that we get referrals for. And every family, every client looks different, you know, so we've had issues such as these parents have 10 children and I can't fit them all in my vehicle to get to, you know, one location, to where we have tag team and workout transportation, to an infant that was born maybe addicted to cocaine or something like that and was removed immediately. And so there's been no bonding to take place between mother and child, and so we're really working on trying to help facilitate that through the parenting time that we have. And when I say parenting time or supervised visits, I mean the same thing. We have a judge in town that is very stern about using the words parenting time instead of supervised visits. So parenting time with our, you know, and we find it very important to try to get as much parenting time as you can, particularly when that bond has not been made yet, so that they do have a chance to form that. So, you know, and everything in between, you know, from the reason why they're involved is because the home is very, very dirty, you know, and the home builders, you definitely will see that, you know, and I know sometimes, and I think personally in those cases, some of those can be the most rewarding, even though they're the most trying and not the best work environment, but you can actually kind of see a change day by day physically, and it's amazing the change that you can see in the kids, you know, when they actually have a place that they can put their stuff, when you get to a point where they wouldn't be embarrassed for their little friends to come home with them and see the place. I mean, that's something that every child should be able to have, is a clean place. And we all know that clean means different things to different people. My standard of clean may be totally different than yours. You may say, oh, that's not clean, that's not clean, you know. So we've got to understand that, but there are some basic safety things. You know, we've had homes where they were running extension cords to the neighbor's house to use their electricity. They didn't have any electricity on in the house, and they had animals that they had not cleaned up from for years, it looked like. It just really, really unsanitary, unsafe conditions that we've gone in and really helped make a huge difference with. So, and then we help, you know, I think sometimes people become so overwhelmed they don't even know where to start, so they don't, you know, and so sometimes they just need a helping hand to help with that. So, any questions about our family preservation program? Are you guys enjoying it so far?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
You have this energy, it's just like, let me listen.
Oh, well, good. Glad to hear that. So, you know, I think that, well, to kind of give you a scale, because I think it's hard to tell when you first start at an agency, but our family preservation program is our largest program by far. You know, we have a lot of staff in that program. Next to that is our Breaking Free Alternatives to Domestic Violence program, and then our Chemical Dependency program. Our smaller programs is probably Vistas and Family Counseling and Parent Education are kind of our smaller programs. But it's been interesting. I've been with the agency for almost 11 years now, and when I first came here, I was over all of our programs and services, so talk about a learning curve. I thought, I'm never learn everybody's names, let alone what everybody does, and I'm supposed to be supervising all this stuff. How am I gonna ever get this? But I did. It took me about 6 months, but I got it, you know, and I'm still learning things. But, you know, what started out when I first started here being our smallest program was our home-based program. We had a half-time therapist that worked in that, about 22 hours a week. That was it. And let me tell you, as hard as it is having a large program, I still think it's much easier because that person was never allowed to be sick, never allowed to be on vacation. Not really, but seriously, it was a problem, you know. And so when we had 2 people, it still was, you know, and so we really, when we started to grow that program, we grew quickly. And the reason why we grew so quickly is because we do really, really good services and we communicate with those referral sources. And they like to work with us and they keep referring, and so they say, can't you please hire more staffs because we love using your agency. And so we've just done that over the years. So I think that says a lot because right here in Marion County for the Home-Based Family Preservation Program, they have 13 other choices. They have 13 other agencies that they could refer to besides us. And those are just ones that they have direct contracts with. There's actually more than that doing that. So I think that says a lot that we've, you know, and we could grow more. We turn away referrals every day for that program because we're full. So anyway, so no pressure, but little pressure. We gotta keep up our good standards there. So, okay, let's move on to our Safe Families division. And Safe Families has, I'm going to kind of work bottom of the page up, a child's haven. What a child's haven is a supervised child waiting room. So we don't call it a daycare. We don't meet the qualifications for a daycare, but it is a supervised waiting room. And if you guys haven't had a chance to peek your head in Child's Haven, I encourage you to do so. It's fun. And we also have a location down at the City County building where we have a contract to have our Child's Haven office there, and the whole role of that is to provide child care so that if a parent is in, say, on a domestic violence court case and they don't have child care for their child, the child doesn't have to go into court and hear all this stuff about their parents. Which I think is a good move, not to have children hearing all that stuff and all that back and forth that can go on during those court cases. And so that's what we're there for. So they can drop off their kids and we'll take good care of them until the court case is over, and then they can come pick up the kids safe and sound and be on their way. So, and that's the same concept here whenever we have groups. And certain other times throughout the day we may have a Child's Haven open. It's not open from 8:30 in the morning till 8 at night. Usually it's open in the mornings on the days we have groups in the morning, and then in late afternoon and evening. It's always open in the evenings because we always have, that's our busiest time actually with people in the agency. So we have a good group of child care workers that work there. And I love it when I hear them singing and doing little activities in there. Not so much when there's upset children. I had one on my hip the other day I was carrying around because he did not want to be put down, and there was like 6 little ones in there. And that child care worker, I thought she was going to go bonkers if she didn't get some help. So he sat through a couple meetings with me, and he was perfectly content if you didn't set him down somewhere. So sometimes we tag team it around here to help out if needed. Okay, so that's a Child's Haven. Our parent education program, what we do is we get referrals, self-referrals for that as well. People just say, hey, I'd like to come and take your class. The neat thing about ours is it's broken up so that if you're a parent of a toddler, you could go to the toddler class. If you're a parent of a teenager, you could go to the teenage class. If you're a parent of a 5 to 7-year-old, you could go to that class. If you're a parent and you have kids all different ages, you pick which one's causing you the most grief that day, and that's the one you go to. We really encourage couples to come as well. We give a pretty large discount if their spouse comes or their boyfriend or girlfriend comes with them, because we really would like to have, when we have 2-parent homes, we'd like to have both parents involved. We also have a contract with Department of Child Services for parent education. And so with our DCS clients, we will go in and do an assessment in their home. They'll come for 4 weeks of class, and then we'll do a midterm assessment, watch how parents and child are interacting with each other, and then we do a final assessment in the home. So it's kind of a, we used to just do straight out 8 weeks of education, but now we've added these other components to it as well. So that's our parent education. Any questions about Child's Haven or Parent Ed? Okay. Now, what some people think is our most complicated program is Alternatives to Domestic Violence, our Breaking Free Alternatives to Domestic Violence program. And I think the reason why is because we do so many different things within that. So I like to look at it kind of as a continuum. We have our work with victims, male or female victims, and we also have programming for their children. So we have a group that we do, it's a series, and it's called From Surviving to Thriving, where it's, the kids are broken up by age, again, kind of like the parent ed class, where you've got your small kids and your school-age kids and your teenagers. And while they're in group with their group leaders, the parents are also in group as well. So it's typically moms that are in this group. Although if we had a group of dads, we would have victims, we would do a group on that as well. We do those in Spanish and in English. For the kids, Spanish and English, and for the adults, Spanish and English. In addition to that, we do full-blown victim advocacy. Anything from helping them to get protective orders, to accompanying them to court, to help them find shelter for them for the night, for long-term housing, to transportation, to, I mean, you name it, we help try to coordinate it. And safety planning is a big issue that we work with our victims and with our kids and with our batterers as well. We do safety planning across the board with any of our people involved with domestic violence. We also have, and this is a newer program that we took over last year, it's called the POP project. That's what we call it for short. It's Protective Order Project. And it's down at the City County building where Child's Haven is. And we have people on site. And Molly, you're going to be one of those people.
Yeah,
you are one of those people.
I am the bilingual pop person.
Yes, you are the bilingual pop person. And it's really neat down there because we work with Court 21, which is where most of the domestic violence cases go through. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when I've been down there, it really is like our staff or their staff, everybody works together so closely that it's almost like you work for the city county. Yes.
It's hard to tell who works where.
Right. So, and the main purpose there, obviously, is to provide victim advocacy. We're helping get protective orders, but it goes beyond that. We're helping them. We're accompanying them to court if need be. We're helping to provide other advocacy if they need help with that. So, and it's kind of nice to have that with the Child's Haven down there because we have kind of two groups of our folks down, and they're really right there almost together too. So. So that's been a nice addition that makes a lot of good sense with the program because we were already doing those things anyway. When the Protective Order Project was under the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they worked so closely with our advocates anyway. So it's been a good addition. We've had some really neat. We've helped so many people in that program, but we helped this older woman that had been with her abuser like for 40-some years, and just really, really horrific abuse. And finally decided it was time to kind of break free, and boy, set her up and helped get her housing, got her reconnected with her family, just some really nice things. And she's still checks in from time to time and reports how much happier she is, than she's been in years and years and years. And we know that not all victims leave their abusers, and if families can stay together safely, that's what we're all about. But we know that sometimes when we help victims, they're going to go right back, and we're going to see them again, and we're going to see them again, and we're going to see them again, and that's okay. There's no limit on the times that will help somebody, because everybody's different, and everybody's got their own reasoning and their own motivations for what keeps them in a situation, and what may be the last straw where they finally decide to leave and break free for good. We'll help them wherever they're at in that process. So, and I know I started out and I was a substance abuse therapist in a battered women's shelter in Muncie, and I remember back then, if we saw the same person over and over again, at some point we just said, you know what, we can't free up a bed for you again, and I think things have changed. That was 20-some years ago when I was there, but I know that not everybody has the same thinking we do on that we, if somebody needs help, we're going to keep helping them regardless of how many times they come back. So then kind of continuing on that continuum is we also have batterers programs, and I really hate the word batterers because it's the kind of national term for this type of work, so that's why we use it. But internally we really like to say alternatives to domestic violence. And we have men's and women's group. We have our women's group are called Women Who Use Force, and our men's group, like I said, we call them alternatives to domestic violence groups. So, and that's a 26-week-long program that people can come, and it's a rotating program. So you can start at week 3 and then catch up and get the first 2 weeks at the end. Used to when I first started, it was 26-week program, so it was close-ended. So if you had somebody that called you at week 5, they had to wait 21 weeks to start the program, and that's just way too long. So we modified our curriculum so that it works with a rolling enrollment. So let's see, what else can I tell you? We also have anger management groups, and these are not under, even though they're technically under Breaking Free Alternative to Domestic Violence program, it's really not domestic violence for domestic violence folks. So these are for people that have, punched the guy out, when he jumped out of the car because he cut him off at the pass or something, those kind of incidents, getting in scuffles in a bar, anger management. Punching out your supervisor, please don't ever do that, by the way. We've had a few of those referrals, those kind of things. So, any questions about that?
For people to be in either like the victims group or the alternatives group, do they have to go through the assessment or have a referral to our organization?
They do not have to have a referral. They can self-refer.
Okay.
But yes, we do an assessment with the folks. And sometimes when we get an assessment or we get a referral from like Department of Child Services, and then we sit down and do the assessment, sometimes what we find is what may have been referred as the victim is actually perpetrator, and like we know in relationships, usually there's an identified victim, right, in a domestic violence case, and there's an identified perpetrator. A lot of times though, it's cross. You get people that give and get in those situations, And we really try to look at that. We really try to see what is really going on in that relationship dynamic and see what, you know, a lot of times it's just not real clear cut, you know, that this is clearly a victim and only a victim. I mean, you know, there are those cases, of course, but sometimes there's a lot more to the story than that. So, and we find it's really important to do a good assessment because we know that if we work with a perpetrator on domestic violence issues, but yet they're still using, you know, getting drunk every night or using cocaine or other kind of stimulants, they're probably not going to be as successful in not re-abusing when they leave the program. So it's really important to us that they get the proper resources and treatment and programs that they need to kind of address all those things. Okay. Now y'all had lots of questions for Gail, because I heard them, so.
Our accounting, finance, and HR, Patty works with us kind of under our umbrella. And Jeff Camp, one of our staff accountants on the second floor, and then Ellen Hughes, our other staff accountant. So we have a little small group. I don't think that I met all of you at one point or another. Can you guys just reintroduce yourselves to me? Because I know I've seen some of you, but
I'm Molly
Yeah, I
Burgess.
think we-
I work
at
down
POP,
at the,
yeah. Okay.
I'm Jessica Carroll. I work with home-based case management.
I'm Melissa Fylock, and I'm work with home builders.
That's right, okay. I mean, I've seen all of your names because we process payroll, but sometimes I don't always get I'm not on the tour of the must-see when you guys start, so sometimes I'm in there and sometimes I'm not, so.
and Alicia is a home-based case manager.
Right, so, okay. Well, my part of the presentation, and you can ask questions if you would like. When we first started doing this, I tried to put together a handout of just various kind of administrative information that it seems like we get a lot of questions about when people are new, and a lot of times we get questions when people aren't so new. So I'm trying to cover all this in the handout, and you can keep it for reference material. But just a little FYI about Families First. The first two slides, pages 2 and 3, give you a general idea about the organization and where the bulk of our funding comes from. Our annual budget is around $5 million per year for our calendar year agency. And you can see the blue piece of the pie chart on the page 2 is over 60% of our revenue comes from government grants and contracts. And each of you in this room work in programs that are heavily, heavily, heavily supported by either Department of Child Services or funding that we get through the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. So only 21% of our budget, the light green piece of the pie, is United Way funding. We do get over $1 million a year from the United Way through their community fund allocation. And so when you started, probably when you went through your new hire paperwork, Patty asked if you would be willing to give a gift to the United Way, because one of the things that they do annually is kind of look at the percentage of our staff that are giving to the United Way. And since we're such a large recipient, we kind of switch back and forth with us and the Red Cross as to which organization within Central Indiana has the largest absolute dollars that are funded by the United Way. So we do ask that our staff try to give something to the United Way on an annual basis, since we in turn receive so much support from them. The piece that we're trying to grow out of our revenue is the yellow piece, the unrestricted gifts and grants. And Nate's sister Leah works in the development area, and so most of the programs that we have here that are supported by government grants, the grants don't pay 100% of our costs, and so we have to supplement that with either United Way funding or dollars that we raise through fundraisers from individual or corporate foundation donors. So A lot of times those gifts come without donors saying specifically where they want those dollars directed, so we have some discretion as to which programs need it the most. And within our agency, the program that has the least amount of government support is our program for older and challenged adults, our VISTAS program. There aren't many government sources of funds for services for older adults, seniors. A lot of them want to fund services to kids, but adult seniors and developmentally disabled adults are not as, what's the word I'm looking for, attractive to political funders. So we're always struggling to find support to help those folks in that program, because a lot of their work is labor intensive. Elders, people who can't manage their own money, people who can't take care of themselves, require a lot of hands-on from our staff. So if we can find sources of revenue in the government sector for all of y'all's programs, then that leaves us some unrestricted dollars that we can hopefully provide more services to seniors, because that population is growing and growing, and we have a waiting list for those clients. So, page 3 just gives you a general idea of where we spend our money, and you can expect, as a social service agency, the bulk of our costs is in personnel. You know, salaries, wages, payroll taxes, fringe benefits make up 85% of our total budget. So, you know, if we've got a $5 million budget, over $4 million of it's in personnel costs. So there aren't a lot of areas where we have a lot of discretion. And, you know, if we want to keep everyone employed, then we have to kind of fit all of our funding sources to make sure we have enough funds to cover the personnel costs of all of our staff. And then all the rest of the costs together are less than 15%. The biggest piece of that is just the rent that we pay on this building. And then the third highest expense would be the mileage reimbursements that we pay to staff on a monthly basis for you all driving your personal vehicles on behalf of Familes First business. So just gives you an idea of kind of where we spend our money. Time reporting, I know that Patty kind of covered this when, this page 4, when you started, and I'm sure as you guys have been here for a little while, as far as your time reporting in tier, that we do ask, and we've been trying for the last year or more to make it a priority that staff enter their time on a daily basis. And it will become more important as we more fully integrate all of the aspects of tier, our time reporting and client record software, exclusive of what POP does and exclusive of the Home Builders ODM. But if you could, I know the ODM folks only have to enter their non-client service time in tier, but if you would kind of get on the habit of putting that in every day, if you're office-based, if you're home-based, then you have 2 days to get it in, because this drives the month-end closing, us getting information we need for payroll, getting all the information together to produce vacation and sick reports. And as you can expect, we have about 100 total staff, not all of whom are full-time, but there's always stragglers and outliers that Jeff's got to track them down to get their time in and get their supervisors to get it final saved. And you know, it does also hinge the sorry, I got a cold, but the payment of monthly mileage reimbursements also runs off of final save time slips. So the faster that you get it in, the faster that your supervisors get it final saved, the less questions that we have when it comes around to paying out the monthly mileage reimbursements to staff. So, and then once a month, Patty sends out a notice that, you know, to close the month of March, for example, everybody will have until April 2nd, if that's a weekday, to get all their time slips in for March, and then the supervisors will have until the 4th of April to get the time file saved. You're gonna edit me, right, Nate?
Yeah, you're.
The problem is the more I talk, the more I cough. The payroll schedule, and I believe, Patty, that we are, when new people start, they do get a copy of their applicable payroll schedule in their new hire paperwork. Just an FYI, we pay on a lag, which means everybody gets paid, and there are only, you all are salaried people, so you get paid twice a month on the 15th and the end of the month. We have hourly people, all the program support people, and our child care workers who are paid on an hourly basis. They get paid every other week on a Friday. And just so happens this month, those two pay schedules both coincided on March 15th and March 29th, because that's the last working day of the month. So everybody will get paid on Friday. And for you all, the pay that you're getting paid on Friday will cover your work from March 1st to March 15th. So the first half of the month, your work that time period gets paid on the last pay date of the month. Your work from March 16th to March 31st will get paid on April 15th. So there's always that lag when you first start, when you have to work a little while before you get your first paycheck from us, but conversely, if you were to leave, then you'll get a couple more paychecks after that. So it kind of lags, and that allows us time to make sure that when people are claiming sick, vacation time, that they, one, have enough sick and vacation time, and two, that they've got enough hours accounted for. If they're full-time people, they should be accounting for at least 7.5 hours a day times 5 days a week. So does that kind of make sense to you guys? So, yeah, and then for example, we have a person whose last day was February 28th, so she got her last paycheck like the middle of March, and then she's getting her vacation and sick pay out on Friday. So that's usually there's a couple more paychecks after the last day, so.
Thanks for explaining. I think Patty had to help me explain it, because I didn't know that at first. And
Mhm.
normally the other jobs where I work, where it's been a delay, my first check is double.
Yeah.
So that's what I was expecting.
Yeah,
So,
oh,
okay.
okay, yeah,
So,
no.
I didn't know at first.
Yeah, so then if you were to leave, then you'll get another paycheck for the days that you're working. Now, what we do is if people quit in the middle of a pay period, then we kind of prorate based on the number of days that you actually worked in the pay period, so it all works out. Mileage policy, I'm not gonna belabor that, but on page 6, I did kind of recreate the mileage policy that you're all have been asked to kind of sign off on when you're in your new hire packet, to make sure that you understand that the time that you spend commuting, or the mileage that you spent on a normal commute, is not really claimable from Families First. Does that make sense? Has everybody, have your supervisors gone over that with you? Like say, because you're in the home builders, right? Okay, so say you, say from your home to here is 10 miles, okay? Even though you're not office-based, you would have a normal commuting mileage. So say your first appointment of the day is only 5 miles from your house. Well, say that it normally takes you to drive 10 miles, it takes you half an hour, okay? Say your first appointment of the day is only 5 miles from your house and only takes you 15 minutes to get there. You really can't claim that time and that mileage, because it's less than what you would normally spend if you were to drive here. And please do not, we've had people say, well, I'll just swing by the office and then go on to my appointment. Well, so if I drive from here to here and then drive back here, then I can claim all this mileage. Like, no, because in the end it all works out. So, but then if your first appointment for the day is 15 miles from the house and it takes you 35 minutes to get there, you'd really put down 5 minutes of traveling time, which is the difference between what it would normally take you to drive here, 30 minutes and 35 minutes, and 5 miles, the difference between 10 miles to drive here and 15 miles to drive to your client. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I was, because I'm kind of far from the office, so,
Yeah.
and a lot of my clients are farther from here, so for me it's 17 miles to the office, and right now my clients are 21 miles
Yeah.
from my house. So I was getting confused about the time
Yeah.
part. So the mileage I understood, but the time that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do, so that
So if it normally takes you, how long does it take you to drive?
20 minutes.
And
get
so
here
then
from
to
my
drive
house.
another 4 miles, it may take you,
It's about 33 minutes.
okay, so you just claim the difference in the time and the difference in the miles, and that's what you put on your time slip for the mileage
Okay.
piece. Okay, yeah.
I have a question, because I only live 0.2 miles from the office.
Yeah.
So at that point, I just always subtract 0.2
Mhm.
before I claim. So am I
Yeah.
doing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you're going somewhere that's only 0.1 away from the house, then you would claim nothing, okay? So yeah, that's what you would do. So, I mean, we don't like, every month when we run the mileage report, we do scan through it for every single person and look, I mean, if somebody's got 300 miles on one day, we will check into that and make sure that somebody, instead of putting 300, they should have put 30.0, because we have had that too. So, just watch your decimal points when you put them in there, because we have a way to correct that, but we do kind of audit that for reasonableness because, you know, as you could expect, a lot of the home-based case managers especially have a lot of mileage. So we do try to keep track of that on a monthly basis and just do some spot checking to make sure that that looks reasonable. Because, you know, we will open them, and especially if you use the tier time slip, you know, on that tab you have to put from and to. And I know a lot of times for home builders, or home-based, if you're taking a client around in multiple, like to put in job applications or something, you can just bundle that all together. But the more descriptive you can be on, you know, picked up client at home and stopped at 4 potential employees for a total of 80 miles or whatever, because, you know, if you're taking somebody around the 465 to put in applications, the miles can rack up. So the more description you can put in there, the better off it is.
I have a question about
Yeah.
that. It's like, when I go to the library a lot for job searching,
Mm-hmm.
using the computer, so is it okay if I put, cause I think I be doing a lot, and I feel bad for you guys who having to read all that mumble jumble with addresses and numbers, like I might put College Library Branch plus the address.
Mhm.
Is that too much? Then I'll put McDonald's, 3800, whatever. So I feel like I'm
That's-
doing a lot of writing.
Yeah,
Is it
I think, I mean, yeah, if you could put like the cross streets, you don't have to put the exact address,
Okay.
like McDonald's
Okay.
38th in Illinois or
Okay.
whatever. You don't have to be all 3702 or whatever it is.
Okay.
You don't have to get that exact, but just so we kind of have a general
Okay.
idea of the geographic vicinity that you're in. Because a lot of times we'll look at that stuff and then we're like, it also happens like if you're doing supervised visitation, you have to go like, you gotta go pick this kid up at this location, you gotta go pick this kid up at this location, then you gotta meet at a central location and wait for the parents to come in, then you gotta take them all back. You know, if they're in more than one foster family, you got a lot of driving, so, you know, I know that box isn't very big, but just if you could kind of give us a general idea where you're going. Because we also have had situations where, you know, the clients, like the kids are in a different county and then they gotta go get them, and it's just, I feel for you when you gotta be doing all of that. So, does that kind of cover mileage then for you all? I know, Molly, it's probably not as applicable for you since you're
No.
based there and you have a parking pass and you just drive there and you go in, but it tends to get kind of, you know, and as our agency has grown, it's grown more tilted toward home-based. You know, that's been our growth area, so we have more and more people who don't work in this office or in one of our county offices because they're based in clients' homes or community sites, so. Mileage, we pay that once a month. It's paid on for you all, it'll be paid on the 15th of the next month. So the March mileage will be paid on April 15th if that's a weekday. I forgot now if that's a weekday or not. So, and then for the bi-weekly people, normally their first pay date of the month is around the 8th of the month, and we just can't get it done that fast, so they usually don't get paid till their second half of their month, so. And it's only paid from final saved time slips, so, and we only run the report once. We only grab the information out of the ODM once, so if you forget to put it in there, we can't keep like rerunning it and looking back and saying, okay, I paid her $40 last month, but it should have been 42, so I'm gonna add 2. We can't do that for, you know, because we've got probably of the 100 people that we have, probably at least 60 or 65 of them get paid mileage, so that's a lot of people to keep track of. So just know that if you can adhere to the dates of getting your time in and getting it rendered, and if you make a mistake and you forget, then let your supervisor know so that they can, you know, add the mileage before they final save the time slip, because once it's final saved, they can't correct it. They have to turn in corrections to Jeff, and Jeff gets a lot of emails and things from different people about correcting their time slips. So if you could kind of self-audit yourself before you click that button to, you know, I know you gotta render it first and then put it in there, but just kind of get in the habit of, as you're rendering it, to put the mileage in there. Because, yeah, if we run it and it's not in there, then that's on you. We just can't keep doing it. Because other people say, well, could I just put it all in on one time slip on the end of the month? No. You know, well, I drove 130 miles for this month. Could I just put in one time slip and put 130 miles? No. So if you could kind of And if you've got any questions, let Jeff or me know, because we reside on 2 in Suite 205. I've got some information in the back about who do you call when you got questions about this or that, but enough said about mileage. Petty cash, just an FYI on this, I don't know, do you cover this on the first day about petty cash, or you guys kind of hear this through the grapevine? If you have expenses that you've purchased on behalf of Families First for amounts $10 or less, then you can turn those into Mindy Emenaker for petty cash. Does everybody know Mindy? Okay, she's the Edie's admin assistant. She's in the admin office, like if you walk straight to the back, she's in that office. It's got all the windows in the front. She's the petty cash custodian, and she's Edie's executive assistant, plus she also helps Patty out with some HR stuff. And there is a form, request for reimbursement of expenses for agency business. And most of you, if you're home-based, probably what you're gonna need is, if you come and the parking lot's full over here, you can park at the Mural for $5, bring your little yellow receipt card with you, staple it to one of these forms, fill it out, get your supervisor to approve it, and give it to Mindy, and you'll get reimbursed. Usually, I don't know how often she does reimbursements, but if she can't do it right when you're standing there, usually you'll end up with a little envelope in your mailbox with your name on it, and there'll be $5 bill in there or whatever.
I think she does it weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we did talk about it a little bit during the new hire paperwork process because of the parking.
Yeah. And I do ask that if you have parking and other types of reimbursements, try to get in the habit of turning those in at least weekly, and at the end of a month, you have 3 days into the next month to get those turned in, because what we like to do is get them organized by month, because that helps us get our accounting records, get the expenses recorded in the right month. And so we can't have people like now turning in expenses from January. That just doesn't work for us. So if you could, plus most people would like to get reimbursed rather quickly since they're spending the money themselves, but we do have some that save it up, and I've been trying to break them of that terrible habit, because it just makes it hard for us to account for it when they turn in stuff late. And other people that have been here a while longer, if you got questions about it, just ask them or give us a holler. Next page, page 9, accounts payable procedures. We write checks every Thursday. Usually the types of things that you guys might need to turn in, well, if you've got expenses that you spend on behalf of Families First that are more than $10, we need to write you a check. We only let petty cash run for stuff less than $10. So if you've got multiple parkings, you know, for like 3 or 4 days, and we can just write you one check to reimburse you, or if you bought some supplies for, like a lot of staff, like the people that staff Child's Haven, they may buy snacks or something for Child's Haven. Now, that doesn't mean you just go out and spend your own money and ask for reimbursement. You need to get your supervisor's approval if you're gonna be spending your own money to buy things like supplies, because normally if there are true office type supplies, let Jeff Camp know that, and that's covered a little farther back here, because since we're a tax exempt organization, we have sales tax exemption, we can buy a lot of stuff from Staples, Office Depot, where we don't have to pay sales tax on it. So if you could plan ahead a little bit and turn in your request, usually if you email, I mean, usually order stuff once a week. So we'd like to do that rather than you spending your own money and then asking for reimbursement. Other things that people do, especially in home-based, like if you're a true home-based client, if we can get a referral from DCS for a monthly bus pass or something like that, usually the staff will turn in a request, we'll write the check to Indigo, the staff will go buy the bus pass, and then turn in the receipt to Jeff. Those kinds of things are normally what you're gonna do. Or if you've got like outside seminars or things like that, there's another form for getting approval for that, but usually we'll write the checks or charge it on the American Express if we're registering people for outside seminars. So, and we ask if you've got something like that, if you can put it in Jeff Camp's box. He's got a mailbox in the admin copier room, or on the Main Street side, at the bottom far right corner of that first set of mailboxes, there's an admin box. We only get one little box down at the bottom, but if you've got check requests, if you put them in there on by Thursday mornings at 9, you usually get your check that day. So what we have a problem with is people saying, well, you say you write checks on Thursday and they bring in at like 4:30 on a Thursday. No, I'm sorry, because neither Jeff nor I can sign checks. Only Edie, Gail, and Michelle are the only 3 people who can sign checks, and sometimes none of them are here. So or if you know you need a check and it's not on a Thursday, if you can give Jeff a holler and say, hey, I got a client emergency, I've gotten approval from my supervisor, could we write a check on Wednesday? The longer time you let us know, we'd really appreciate that if it's outside of the normal Thursday, okay? Because, yeah, please don't come at 4:30 on Thursday, because, you know, we're done with it by then. And moved on to other things. Pages 10 and 11, I know we've been somewhat remiss on getting our reports out. Mainly I am the bottleneck on this right now. Ellen Hughes is the person you contact. She's at extension 251 if you need information about where you stand on your vacation and sick balance. And I'd really like to get in the rotation of just distributing that information on a monthly basis. We're not quite there yet because I'm bottleneck right now. So, but the way that the vacation and sick time work, first year people have 2 weeks of vacation and you earn it, and it's calculated on your employment date to your anniversary date. It's not on it. So if all of you started on different days, then your vacation year is different from each other. So it accrues, or you earn it, so if it's 75 hours a year, which is 2 weeks times the standard 37.5 hours a week, that's 75 hours that you earn in your first year, and it earns ratably over every calendar day. So every day you earn 75 divided by 365, you earn that number of hours every day. So Saturdays and Sundays included. So, and that's the way our system works. The sick time is the same way. You earn 12 days a year. 12 times 7.5 is 90 hours a year. So basically you're earning, if you round off a year to 360 days, 90 divided by 360 would be a quarter of an hour every day is basically what you're earning in sick time. And I think hopefully your supervisor covered with you that you know, if you're requesting vacation time, there is a form to fill out to request vacation time. And we ask that you, as soon as you kind of know when you want your vacation, to get with your supervisor and get that approved, because we can't have like everybody in the same program asking for the same week off. So kind of need to have some idea of who's asking for what time off. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay.
Well, kinda, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm confused, so you can start taking vacation days after 6 months. And then, you know, obviously, so then you have the other 6 months to basically fill out your year to take those 10 days.
Yeah.
Number one, do the days roll over, or do you just, like,
What-
if you don't take all 10 of those?
What happens is you can roll over up to the amount that you earn in a year. So if your first year you didn't take any vacation at all, by your anniversary date, you'd have 75 hours built up, right?
Mhm.
So that rolls over into the next year. The next year, from years 2 through 5, you earn 3 weeks of vacation,
Right.
which is 112 hours. 37.5 times 3 weeks is 112.5 hours, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So then you start earning at the rate of 112.5 hours. Once you're into year 2, if you haven't taken any of your first year hours, once you get to the 112.5, you stop earning until you start taking time off. So once you've reached your max, you can't earn anymore until you start taking time off. So, and then what happens is by the time you've been here 5 years, in years 6 up, you earn 4 weeks of vacation, which is 150 hours. And once you reach that 150, then you can't earn any more until you start taking time off. As long as you keep your balance below the max that you can earn in a year, then you're okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you earned 75 hours in the first year, and in the second half of your first year you took 2 weeks off, you'd basically be down at 0 by the time your anniversary date rolled around.
Mhm.
Then you'd start off earning at the rate of 3 weeks. And once you got to that max, then, because where we run into that problem is people who are in years 2 to 5, because that range is the same. It's 3 weeks of vacation in years 2 through 5. And if we have people who don't take a lot of vacation, they get up to that 3 weeks max, and then it stops adding to that until they start taking time off.
Right, so, but if you, so let's say you take all your time in your first year or
Mhm.
whatever, and then by the time like your anniversary date comes along and you have a vacation planned, cause I'm planning my vacations.
Yeah.
Can you immediately, since you're in your second year and you're past that like 6 months, can you immediately start taking like that vacation day, or is there like, are you
Well-
supposed to be like building this
Well,
up?
we
Like,
would ask that you try to plan that with your supervisor, cause we have let people go in the hole, go negative, cause you don't, like, on your first day of your second year, you don't get all 3 weeks in your bank.
right,
That's what
okay,
you're asking.
yeah.
So, I mean, so we have let people go negative, but we would like them to, their supervisor and them to be fully in agreement that they're going to be allowed to go negative, because what ends up happening is if people quit and they're negative, then we end up having to adjust their final payroll
Right,
to
to
account
take
for the
money.
fact that they took days off that they really hadn't earned.
Mm-hmm.
So we have had that, but as long as we know that people are being allowed to go negative, then yeah,
Okay.
so.
And we want people to use their vacation.
Right, we
time.
do.
And we know what you do is intensive, so you need that time off. So work with your supervisor,
Yeah.
especially if you
Looking at
plan,
you.
I like to plan
Looking at
vacations ahead too.
vacations.
You know, it gives you
Yeah.
something to look forward
Right,
to. So
right.
we want you to use that time, work
Right.
with your supervisor.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have questions, I can help you with it as well.
Cause that's, yeah, it's not there to just save up and then get paid for it when you leave. That's not really the whole idea of having vacation. I mean, we have had people who have done that, but that's really not the idea of having vacation. It's for people to
Right.
build up to 4 weeks and then say, well, I wasn't allowed to take any vacation, and so now I'm gonna get paid for 4 weeks of vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, the money might be nice if you're moving or moving on to a different job, but you've given up all that restorative time that really is what the vacation is for.
Right.
So, the FYI on who you need to contact when you have different questions or issues. Jeff is normally our person on, hey, the copy machine doesn't work. Hey, you know, I've got an issue with my laptop. I got problems with tier. I need to order office supplies, that kind of stuff. He's usually the guy that you need to go to. And he responds by email and by voicemail. Next page, page 14, just a couple of FYIs that I wanted to point out on that third bullet point down, and I know Patty covers this through the new hire orientation. Most of your at least three of you are driving your own vehicles on behalf of Families First. And so your car insurance is the primary carrier for liability coverage if you were to cause an accident while you're driving on behalf of Families First. But we carry a secondary policy if your liability coverage is not sufficient to cover the cost of the damages or the lives that you mar, injure, whatever. There's a secondary policy that we cover that would pick up the difference over your liability. So what we have to do in order to qualify for that secondary coverage is ensure that our staff are carrying liability coverage on their own autos. So that's why we're asking you to provide us with a copy of the declarations page from your automobile insurance that you know states what cars are covered and what your limits of your liability are. Now it's up to you if you say, I got an old car and I'm not gonna cover my car for comprehensive damages, you know, that's on you. It's the liability piece that we're mostly concerned about for our qualifications for our insurance policy. So please, if you're asked to turn in that page, try to get it in, because, and it's not that little card that goes in your glove box that just says you have insurance. It's the actual page from your policy that shows the beginning and ending date of your coverage and what your limits are on your liability. So if you haven't turned that in as new hires, I'm sure that Patty's got that as one of the open items on her thing. But if you're like me, I mean, my policy renews every 6 months, so I have to kind of like, okay, my policy's now renewed, I need to bring in a copy of my declarations page, so.
These ladies were all really good about getting their
Right.
declaration page.
Yay.
I think the challenge is renewing as it renews. Everybody's on a different cycle,
Right.
quarterly, semi-annually. So when you get that renewal information, we need a copy of it. And we did cover it, but I know it's a lot to remember. We probably need to send a reminder out from time to time.
Well, Marco used to, she went through the
Individually,
book, and then
yeah.
as things she saw they were
Yeah.
expiring, she just sent emails
And
to
Mindy's
people.
trying to monitor that, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, probably, would that be helpful to send reminders out
Yeah.
from time to time? Okay.
Last page then, or page 15, Patty is any HR related question, and if she doesn't know the answer to it, a lot of times she'll get Jeff and me involved in it, and we work very closely, because all of that impacts how people get paid and what benefits that we're paying on behalf of them, so just dial her into any of that stuff. Mindy, we do have a presentation laptop and a projector, and Mindy does maintain the sign-out sheet if you need to sign out the projector to make a community presentation or something. Please sign it out, because we've had lately staff taking it without signing it out, and then the next person who had it signed out showed up the next morning and went, hey, I had this signed out for today, where is it? And then no one had signed it out, we didn't know where it was, and of course the person who had reserved it was freaking out, because she, did what she was supposed to, and then it wasn't there for her, so.
Just stop by
Yeah.
HR, we'll show you where the
Where-
sign-out
where the
sheets
sign-out
are.
sheet is.
And then everything's locked up, so
Yeah.
that, we can't really maintain, the machine, so.
Yeah, reservations for group rooms or individual rooms, if you need those are handled by the front desk. They maintain the sign-out book, so let Karen or Cindy, the ladies who work at the front desk, know if you need to schedule a room, and they'll help you. So please don't just park in a room if you see it open, because that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be open for the whole time that you're in there. We like to keep the freak out factor down, because it's stressful, I think, sometimes when you're dealing with client issues and you're expecting things to go how you plan, and then you show up and there's somebody already in there. I'm not a counselor, but I can imagine it can lead to some angst and stress. Last page, and I know Patty covered this some on the first day when you guys started, that, if you're gonna be on vacation or at a conference out of the office, please change your voicemail greeting, that says, I'm gonna be away from the office from April 4th through whatever, or does everybody know how to use the out-of-office assistant on Outlook?
That's right, we can help you with
Yeah,
that.
if you don't, please see Patty, because we're trying to get more consistent with people's out-of-office assistant to kind of make it professional, and, cause I've seen some where people had spelling errors, not like the best especially when you're getting emails from DCS case managers and that, and then what's kicking back to them is something that the spelling, capital and small letters, no punctuation, so we're trying to get it to where and we also had situations where, clients our staff are on vacation for a week, and the case manager's trying to get a hold of them to appear in court, and they keep sending emails, and nothing, they don't get a response back, and then then it filters up through the supervisor and ultimately to Michelle, and then you've got somebody that's irate because so-and-so hasn't called me back. We'll come to find out they've been on vacation for a week without any out-of-office setup. So please see Patty if you have questions about how to do that, because it's very easy, and we're trying, especially for people who are out a lot, as you all are, it would just help a lot if you could kind of get in the habit of using that feature, because it's pretty easy. Does anybody have any specific questions that I didn't cover? We're down on 205, Ellen, Jeff, and I. If you ever need to stop and see us, please do. We don't fight.
But all of these are located on the P drive, and so if you need help, because I know I'm still learning, and I'll be with Familes First in April, will be a year for me, and I'm still asking people now, where do I go to find this? So it's okay to ask, and it's a lot, and that's why we're trying to improve our new employee orientation and onboarding. So again, I was glad Michelle was asking you all how things were going, and she really wants to know. The senior managers are accessible. We want to continue to improve things. We're working with supervisors to help them because they're still learning in a lot of instances. So Anyway, this is really, really common sense stuff. So I did a little different on the stapling. Maybe that will help wake you up. I do that sometimes. If you'll notice the second page, it talks about policies. And these are, again, very common sense. We're gonna go through here really quickly and very briefly. And a lot of times, when we're not videotaping, we just will do kind of round robin and read this stuff. I'm not gonna read it all to you, but we wanna hit the highlights because the policies that this little handout covers are the emergency procedures. We found that a lot of times we've been kind of remiss in talking about this, and I didn't know for the longest time that there are 2 stairwells. There's one over here by the Main Street entrance, and well, actually there's 3. And then there's one leaving the Main Street break room, and then there's what I call the old stairwell, which is a little scary. You might find little critters, laying around, and it's down here at the end of the hallway. Have you all been in that stay away stairwell? from there if you look. Okay. And I use that a lot of times just to kind of, break things up. It's not that scary, but anyway, that's an example. So we're gonna look at emergency procedures in workplace safety. And I don't want to talk down to anyone because these are so common sense, but when you receive the policies, you'll have the paper, then you can find them on the P drive. And it's things that we need to be prepared for and to think about. And since I've been here, most of, or some of these things have happened. So we're gonna start by looking at responding to medical emergencies. And you have to determine if they're life-threatening. I trust all of your common sense. So if you think it is, then you call 911. Ask for assistance, whether it's the person at the front desk, one of your coworkers, whomever is available. And so you need to let someone else know. And then on page 4, emergencies that are not life-threatening, we want to let the front desk know because most people are going to check into our front office person. And you need to find out from that individual what their need is. And I think all of you know how to reduce a kind of a crisis situation rather than getting excited yourself. Try to stay calm, reduce your voice, don't go shouting and screaming. And we do have first aid supplies. Have you all found those? Do you know where those are at? I can show you in the admin area. We need to ask someone on the Main Street side because I know that we had looked at that at one point and we have it on both sides, okay, a first aid supply. And then just reminders on page 5, some action steps to check the scene to make sure it's safe for you to approach. Check the individual for whether they're unconscious or if it could be life-threatening. Call out for help and then care for that person, especially if it's not life-threatening. Okay, then page 6, it talks about building evacuation. And it is our obligation as staff members to first look to the safety of our clients. Okay, and our clients aren't going to know where the exits are. Some of them will know where the one set of stairwells is located. But if they need assistance, then we want to take care of them because they're going to be unfamiliar with things. Okay. On page 7, it talks about severe weather, like a tornado. And so if an alarm sounds, don't use the elevators, stay away from the windows, and we ask everyone to go to the basement unless it's the kind of weather where maybe we need to go outside, so that's covered as well. If you're at a client's home and the house does not have a basement, go to the lowest floor and get in a small interior room or hallway. I like this next point on page 7. It says if you have time, get in the bathtub and pull a mattress over the tub. So there you See
go.
some of those tubs.
And if we have an earthquake, we want to duck or drop to the floor and take cover under a sturdy desk or table. And then if you're evacuating the office, what we've decided to do is gather in the northeast corner of the south parking lot. And then try to find your supervisor. The challenge is many of you are out in the field anyway. There's no way we're going to be able to really verify that everyone's out of the building. But we feel like at least if we have a gathering place, so the south lot down here at the corner of North and Alabama, and then the northeast corner, which is near that back entrance that goes out the back door, okay? Any questions?
Okay, bomb threat, most are received over the telephone, and if it occurs, then you can just write down, bomb threat, call 911 to someone close by. If you do find a bomb, don't touch it. Ask all persons to leave the building, seal the area, and call 911. See, common sense, right? These are in our policies, so, we want to understand these. Fire safety. If you see a fire, who are you gonna call? 911, that's on page 10. And if an alarm sounds, what always surprises me, because I've worked in an environment where I was with a lot of different clients as a consultant, and a lot of times alarms would go off and no one's taking action, and they're just like, oh, those go off all the time, it's a false alarm. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take action until I know for sure that it's not a real, emergency situation. So again, use your common sense, think about client safety, and then this is a list of things that you can do to help in a fire safety situation. Here at this office, the Main Street area, other than the little counseling rooms right inside that first area where we have the small counseling rooms, that's still, everyone should be accompanied by a staff member. I didn't know that for a long time because we didn't have new employee orientation for a few months, and I was directing people over there, like if they were a vendor or something, but we do not want anyone to go over there unless they're accompanied by a staff member. And then of course we know that the doors are to remain locked because we have the code for the lock. And if you feel unsafe with a client, now I'm sure this is different for you all out in the field, and I know it's covered, would love to get some input, and even for you at the court building. But here, I checked with our, earlier this week or the end of last week, our front office, the reception area, folks up there. On page 12, if you feel unsafe when you're here with a client, then you press 0 to go to the receptionist, and the code is to just say, you're gonna be late for your next appointment. And I said, really? Because I'm sure that happens. And she said, no, that really is the code here. And so I said, what happens if someone is gonna be late for the next appointment? And they say, this is not, an emergency or a crisis situation. That's what they do here. That's what I was told. So it's a signal to the receptionist that you need assistance. So keep that in mind. If you say, you call and you alert the front desk personnel that you're gonna be late for your next appointment, that's a code here. Okay? Make sense? And then if the situation warrants immediate response, hopefully you know where the security alarms are. I think we talked about it a little bit. There's one at the desk that's right across from where my office is. There's this little white unit you pull down. They actually have a button underneath the front desk, right at your knee. There's one there. There's 2 or 3 on the Main Street side. So if you haven't seen them, just make a point of walking through and locating them, okay? And they're listed in here on page 13. The other thing that I did right away, and I think most of us talked about it when you all first came on board, is to put that security, the guard, the number for the front desk, save that in your cell phone. It's listed on page 13, so that if you're here and you want an escort out to your car, take advantage of that, okay? And then home-based or out in the field, you all could probably share some things now, even the short time you've been with us, but on page 14, they just suggest to really be aware of your environment at all times. I think that's good for all of us, and especially women. I really pay attention to where I park. Like if I'm gonna be late, I wanna be underneath or near a light. And I get my key out early, I've got the little alarm thing, because I've had to use that, in the past, not here in Indianapolis, been in another city. Anyway, it really tells you to think through about the safest time of the day to enter neighborhood. Don't wear a lot of bling bling. Have your information prior to your home visit, and make sure your cell phone is operational. And do you all submit a schedule? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're shaking your head no. See, that's something we keep saying we need to really tighten up, because we need to know if for safety purposes. And some of the staff have told me that they always let a family member know what their schedule is for the day. I think it's a good practice. I really do. And then if you think you're in a dangerous situation, call 911. Okay, on page 15, it's safety precautions in or out of the office. Think about an escape route. Do not sit with a client between you and the door. I think that's really good advice, and I'm sure you as counselors, you think about that. Notify someone on staff if you're going into a situation that you think that it may become unsafe. So, you kind of give someone a heads up. Do you have procedures at the court building that you all have discussed? Not really? Okay, so you could maybe take this back and, Jen, Claudia, Mark, the team there, really think about those things. So look at page 18 and 19 and even the next couple of pages. It's about driving. And of course, at least the three of you are out in the field so much. And so it's just some tips about driving as a part of your work day and reminders about appropriate passenger restraints. And, we've talked about providing proof of insurance. And then if an accident occurs, just standard practices about notifying the police, report to your supervisor. And I like the tips, reminders. Now I have little lights that come on, and my husband has trained me well. If a light comes on, I let him know about it. But these tips about, checking your tires and tire pressure, engine fluids, and wiper blades. And you all have already highlighted, like planning your route before your trip. And of course, we all are trying to learn not to use our cell phones while we're driving. So take a look on page 20 and 21. Again, there's some good common sense items that are included, and especially on page 21, some things that we can control, those factors that we can look at about our emotions and our vehicle speed, but some things out of our control, the weather like we've had recently, and other drivers and all those things. And then here are some things in our policies on page 22 about communicable diseases. And you'll notice we have a lot of hand sanitizer dispensers around. I keep one on my desk, and we try to keep one at the front desk. So just those little things, and I'm sure you're teaching your clients somewhat, about like using your sleeve when you cough, and just those little things can really be helpful. And then you're also going to receive all the policies that pertain to confidentiality and privacy. There's new HIPAA laws that went into effect this week. So we're going to have more intensive training and information go out in the next couple of months. You're going to hear much more about that. We're updating our policies. And then requirements to report child abuse and abuse of dependent adults. And then technology policy and guidelines. You all received some of those when you signed your life away. If you received a laptop, I forget I'm being taped. I'm going to be in big trouble here. It's an investment by the agency. And, your reminder about locking things in the trunk is so important, because that also impacts our privacy policies. And, hopefully you're not saving things to your hard drive. You're saving it to the network so that you don't have any of that private and confidential information on your laptops in case something does happen to it, okay? You want to save all of that to the network only, okay? Any questions or comments about this so far?
Hi, I'm Liz McCorder. I'm the PR director. And I'm here to give you, this is kind of something newer we're doing, but we wanted to make sure all our staff, we all work in such different parts. A lot of people don't know what the other parts do, or when we're going out into the community, people are explaining Families First differently, depending on what they know about Families First. So we realized our messaging as a whole, including our board, our volunteers, was like kind of all over the place. So the PR committee, which is made up of board members and I, decided, all right, let's get our messaging like straight and then train everybody. So we're all kind of saying the same thing. So the first thing I had to figure out was what confuses people, or why do people feel like they're not comfortable trying to explain about Families First. So I polled the board, who know this place pretty well, said what question do you most fear or feel least prepared to answer if somebody asks you about the place you're on a board. And what do you think that they said?
what Familes First does.
Yes. Do you mind speaking? Oh, well, that's weird. Okay, hold on.
I don't know what happened.
I don't either.
It wasn't my fault.
It's not. Sorry. Maybe just, I don't know what this weird screen is, but I guess
Click
that's
that.
working, yeah.
Okay.
So sadly, probably the most important question of all is what people felt least prepared to answer, which is, what does Familes First do? And it actually is a kind of daunting question because we do so much, and how do you explain it quickly and succinctly, but feel like you're doing a good job? So, can you look at? Oh, we're not ready for that yet, but if you look at the messaging booklets I gave you, this is kind of what we came up with. Oh, it's just a whole like sugar your,
Oh,
yeah. It's just a little brochure. This is what we came up with as far as like, okay, let's get the things we think are most important about this place that we need to get across if you have a couple minutes standing with someone. What are the aspects of Familes First that we most want people to know? So if you look down the middle of that trifold when you open it, there's characteristics of who we are. And so we thought, I gotta look at one, but that accessibility, array of services, quality of experts, trusted reputation, and solutions-based are sort of the things that make our counseling center stand out from like other places that people might know that do the same thing. So I kind of did this out of order. That's gonna be something I'm gonna ask you to have like one or two of those that you like to talk about when you tell people about us, okay? If you look to the left, this is the formula for answering what does Familes First do? There's kind of two ways, and you can, if you have your own way of explaining it, that's totally great. We just wanted to have one way that people could use if they're at a loss. So what you can do is, and this kind of, I got a little bit from Edie listening to her go out and explain this. There's kind of two ways she does it. Either she says, well, think about a problem in your family, in your extended family, or a problem with a friend's family you know about. Familes First probably has the services to help with that problem. And then you kind of give them a taste of what that would look like. So we handle smaller common issues like marital conflict or parenting problems. We also do larger, more challenging problems like domestic abuse or chemical dependency. So you kind of give like a range of things, and that helps them have an idea without you just listing every program and them kind of glazing over. Okay, so the other way to do it is just to say, we address issues across the family generation. So every step in a family, we have services for that time period. So everything from, and then you do the exact same thing, from parenting problems to elder services, and also we deal with tougher issues like addictions and child abuse. I'm going to say it that way. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Then depending on who you're talking to, different ones. If you're talking to people who have aging parents they're worried about, definitely talk about elder services in there, you know? Okay, so let's see. Okay, then on the right side, so basically what this is, as it says up here, is a la carte messaging. That's what one of our board members sort of came up with, and it's almost like a menu. You pick one way from here to explain it, know a couple of qualities that we have that you can explain, and then pick a couple pieces of data that you just memorize about us. So you can give people some hard numbers so they know, can see that we are effective. So these are actually, what I have on there are 2011 data, but now we have just pretty new 2012 data. So I'm gonna have to do these over and give everybody new ones, but you get an idea of what kind of pieces of data. And if you know other data from your own programs, that's fine. These are just some examples. Okay, and then if you turn it on the back, you just have the FAQs, frequently asked questions, and these are the ones that we kind of think come up the most when you're just summarizing Familes First. So those are just things to just know about us. People ask you how we're funded, how many people are on your board, how big's your staff, where do you have offices. So, and then exemplary story, if you look on the left, this is one other thing that's really key to putting in when you're telling someone about Families First, especially because you work here and you're like an insider. You know, you can tell them the data and the qualities we have, but you also really want to get personal, like get some story in there about a client that you've seen get help, okay? So if you've been here a month, I bet you already have some, maybe not, but eventually you're gonna accrue like that favorite client who you can tell their story anonymously, pretty briefly. It can also be if you know of another person in your department has a great story, you can use that, but get that personal message in there too so they can see how we can make a difference in someone's life, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then a call to action, this is coming from the marketing end of things and the development end of things. If you have this opportunity with someone and they're listening about Families First, don't just like, okay, so see ya. That's an in to try to get them involved with us somehow. So whatever you think might speak to them, if you know them pretty well and you're like, you should get involved volunteering, or if you think they're kind of interested, they might want to learn more, if they could use our services, you could tell them to go to our website. But try to, if we have an event coming up, tell them about that. Try to always get in, something that asks them for some involvement. Okay? Any questions about that? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so when to promote Families First? You guys are like our army of promoters. I mean, I can only do so much. And if we have 100 people trying to work on this too, we're gonna get the word out about us a lot better. So any presentation you give, and there are, I don't know if home base does it as much, but there are definitely departments that go out into the community and do presentations. A lot of times we notice that people were just like, hi, I'm from Breaking Free, and just telling about that and then doing their presentation. We really want everybody to start. You don't have to go into detail, but just start by saying, hi, I'm from Families First, we do this, I'm here today to talk to you about da-da-da. Any event you attend as a Families First representative, so you probably will go to a conference at some point, that's a time to speak to referral sources about who we are. In conversation with potential referral sources, and then whenever someone asks you, what do you do? It's an opportunity. How many of you before you came here knew we existed? See, that's our problem. And our name is fairly new, so that's still, people are getting used to it. It's a couple of years old, but we just haven't really focused. We've been so busy on what we do that we kind of have been quiet in the community about who we are, and now we're wanting people to know more. So, okay, can you pick it? The other thing we really want to use is social media power. I know you know that that's the big way to get word out now. What I really would love is to see our staff helping to promote us on their social networks. Because then we, just like I told you, we could reach, if you all do it and your friends see it, that you work there and they click on it. It's just like way more than I could ever do in the article in the Star. So, can you click it? Okay, and this is gonna go like one, yeah. Okay, so first thing, you might have to do this on your phones or when you go home. Because I know we get blocked here. That's a whole other issue. But our Facebook page is Families First, Indianapolis, Indiana. You have to write this whole thing because there are Family Firsts in other places that'll come up first. So one huge thing is just like us on your Facebook page. Go ahead. And then our LinkedIn profile has the same name. Is anybody on LinkedIn in here? No?
I am, but
You are, but you're not? Okay. Well, if you want to be. It's like a professional connection thing, and you can say, you put your resume sort of up there, and then where you work connects to like the page of that place. So this is another page we have. Okay, we have on our website's familiesfirstindiana.org. We have a blog that I write for, that Edie has written some for, and that we just had one of our staff members write for, which was huge because I really want that to happen more. So that can have comments on it. Just if you read the blog and comment or say nice article, Sherry, or whatever, that gets it more attention. Or you could link to it on your own Facebook page. Okay, last. And I don't know if you tweet, but if you do, we're at Familes First IN. So, but on our Facebook page especially, I feel like this is what we can get going the fastest. Just even liking something that we post is great. So, okay. Just a couple little additional messages about PR stuff. Always call us Familes First, no matter what the circumstance. Our legal name is Familes First Inc., but I've asked Michelle, and she just said that really is only if you're like filling out something financial or legal based. So if you're confused, ask, but just in general, this is our name, okay? Yes. Oh, Familes First Indiana Inc., that's it. You won't need to use that. Okay, in-house reminders. I really dragged this out, okay. Letterhead, click it one more time, please. Okay. Our letterhead is expensive, it's on nicer paper, it has like our whole board on it, it's color. We were using a lot of this, and we decided we can probably cut back on how much we're using this. So you can have it if you need like an official document from us. You know, you need to put a letter on something official. It's going to be kept in the admin copy room. Have you seen that room? Okay. If you ever need it, you can get it out of there. We were keeping it over on the other side, and I felt like it was that was encouraging people to use it a lot. So, printers. Okay, you've probably figured this out by now, but Main Street printer. Luckily they're labeled now. They used to be backwards, which was really confusing, but just make sure sometimes people just print a whole bunch on the wrong printer, and it's just a big waste. So always check where you're shooting something off to. Flyers in the booth. Okay, we have like a little suitcase that has promotional materials about us, and a sign, and a tablecloth, and giveaways, that if you ever are going to be part of a booth, like a Familes First booth at some sort of conference, you get to use. So I'm going to talk about this tomorrow at the staff meeting, but we're going to start using a form that you fill out preferably like 10 days before you're going, so I know you're going, and you just tell me like, okay, I want this many counseling flyers, this many of this flyers, you know, just so I can be prepared. And we've had a couple times where it's gotten double booked, and then it's a big disaster. So, and then if you ever just you don't need the whole booth, but you just want to take along a pack of our main brochure or something, you can go over right outside the copy room. There's like a wall of our different marketing materials. You're welcome to just take some. If you take all of one kind, just come tell me so I know. And then if you guys notice that, I don't think there's not an actual just home-based flyer, but if you ever need one, or you notice something's wrong with one of the flyers or outdated, please come tell me, because I don't really know if something changes unless someone tells me. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Oh, no, okay. So that's it. Seriously, if you would ever want to write for the blog, I will help you. You can give me a rough draft, but you guys have like the interesting insights and thoughts on families in the community and your kind of work, or it can almost be anything you want that has something to do with who we are and our mission. So please feel free to talk to me if you like writing.